Everyone expected a lighthearted morning chat. But what unfolded on The View that day turned into one of the most explosive confrontations daytime television has ever seen. When Oscar winner Jennifer Lawrence took her seat on that iconic stage, she had no idea she'd be facing a battle. One waged not with questions, but with condescension, mockery, and a bitter agenda. This wasn't just an interview, it became a line in the sand. It started like any other Tuesday morning broadcast. The View studio buzzed with anticipation, camera crews prepping their angles, producers moving briskly behind the scenes, and the audience clapping in excited bursts. Jennifer Lawrence, dressed in a crisp navy jumpsuit with subtle gold accents, was in high spirits. She had just wrapped a critically acclaimed thriller that was already generating Oscar talk, and this was one of her first press appearances. As the house band played her intro cue, she walked onto the set with her signature warmth, flashing a wide smile and waving to the cheering crowd. The co-hosts greeted her, Whoopi Goldberg with a hug, Sarah Haynes with a welcoming nod, but Joy Behar merely extended a limp handshake and a tight-lipped smile. That was the first red flag. Jennifer didn't dwell on it. She was used to strong personalities. She settled into her seat between Whoopi and Joy, crossing her legs and thanking everyone for having her. "So, Jennifer," Joy began, skipping any pleasantries, "you're here promoting another film where you're playing, what, another troubled, complex woman fighting her inner demons?" Jennifer blinked, slightly taken aback by the tone. "It's a thriller, yes," she replied carefully, "but it's also a story about resilience, about overcoming trauma, and—" Joy cut her off with a smirk. "Sure, sounds like every other role you've done since Silver Linings Playbook." A few audience members chuckled, uncertain if it was meant as a joke. Jennifer smiled politely, shifting slightly in her chair. "Well, I like roles with depth. I think stories about mental health, survival, and strength are important, especially for women." "Oh, of course," Joy nodded sarcastically. "Because you're Hollywood's feminist heroine, right? Ever think maybe you're just being typecast?" The studio's energy shifted. Jennifer kept her poise. "I don't think being drawn to strong female characters means I'm typecast. It means I care about what I put into the world. We need more of those characters, not less." Sarah nodded in agreement, trying to redirect. The film also deals with themes of justice and redemption. But Joy wasn't done. "Justice?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "Didn't you once say you avoided watching the news because it was too depressing? Hard to believe you care about justice when you're tuning out reality." There was a gasp from someone in the front row. Jennifer's smile tightened. "I said that years ago, and I was being honest about protecting my mental health. I think it's okay to take breaks from the news. Doesn't mean I don't care." Joy leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Well, it must be nice to live in a bubble where you can play make-believe for millions of dollars while the rest of us deal with reality." The air in the room dropped several degrees. Jennifer looked straight at Joy. "Acting is storytelling. And good stories are reality. They reflect who we are, what we feel, what we fear. They make people feel seen." Joy smirked again. "Or maybe they just make people rich." There it was, the first real cut, and Jennifer felt it. She glanced briefly at Whoopi, who gave her a small, supportive nod. The other co-hosts seemed uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, but Joy was just warming up. "So, let's get real," Joy continued. "You're a good actress. You're talented. But don't you think the media's obsession with you being relatable is a little manufactured?" Jennifer's voice was still calm, but a new edge had crept in. "That's not something I control. I'm just myself. I don't pretend to be perfect. I trip. I mess up. People seem to connect with that." Joy's laughter was short and sharp. "You mean like the Oscars fall? Or the time you said you were tired of people talking about politics while also talking about politics?" Jennifer narrowed her eyes, not angry yet, but alert. "We're all complex. I've said things I've regretted. I've also stood up for causes I believe in. I don't claim to be a political expert. I just care about people." "Right," Joy said, tapping her pen against her card. "Just a pretty face with opinions." The words hung in the air like a slap. Jennifer sat back slightly. "What exactly are we doing here?" Joy shrugged, feigning innocence. Just asking questions. Jennifer's lips parted slightly as if to respond, but she didn't. Not yet. The silence in the studio was now louder than any applause. The smiles were gone, the laughter replaced with stunned silence. As Jennifer Lawrence sat frozen under the studio lights, she knew this was no longer an interview. It was a dismantling, and Joy Behar was just getting started. Jennifer shifted slightly in her seat, her shoulders no longer as relaxed, the trace of a polite smile completely gone. The atmosphere in the studio was razor sharp. Even Whoopi, ever the calm mediator, seemed hesitant to intervene. Something unspoken had cracked wide open on that stage. Joy leaned forward with a predatory gleam in her eye. You say you don't pretend to be perfect, but isn't that exactly what Hollywood has been selling with you for the last decade? The quirky, clumsy girl next door who's just so real. Isn't that its own kind of performance? Jennifer took a slow breath, eyes steady. If being honest about anxiety, about tripping in public, or admitting when I don't know everything makes me fake, then maybe we've all got the wrong definition of authenticity. Joy scoffed. So authenticity is crying on cue in a movie trailer and then telling fans to stay strong during a press tour? That's real to you? Whoopi visibly flinched. Sarah's eyes darted to the control room. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice low but direct. You're mocking vulnerability like it's a gimmick, but sharing your pain doesn't make it less real. Joy didn't blink. It makes you marketable. The crowd gasped again. Jennifer sat back in stunned disbelief, her expression hardening. Are you seriously questioning whether my experiences, my emotions are valid just because I'm an actress? I'm questioning whether you know where the performance ends and the person begins, Joy said, her voice suddenly colder. The silence was suffocating now. I do, Jennifer said, each word deliberate. And I know exactly what this is. You're not asking questions anymore. You're taking cheap shots to stir the pot. And I think you know that. Joy's tone turned dismissive. Oh, please. You came here for press. You wanted the exposure. Don't act surprised when someone asks about the product. I came here to talk about my film, Jennifer snapped, finally letting her restraint slip, not to be insulted by someone who clearly walked into this segment with a chip on her shoulder. The audience murmured in agreement. Someone in the third row audibly said, "Let her speak." Sarah tried to step in. Joy, maybe we should pivot to the film's message. But Joy cut her off. Let her speak? She's been speaking for a decade. All I'm doing is asking what happens when the America's Sweetheart act starts to fade. Jennifer stood her ground. It's not an act, and if it were, at least I'd be acting with empathy, not cruelty. Joy grinned, almost satisfied. There it is. That fire, that's the Jennifer people don't see. Jennifer's gaze locked on her. Maybe because they're not trying to provoke it. And just like that, the audience was on its feet, not cheering, not booing, but in that stunned middle ground where people don't know whether to applaud or brace for what's coming next. Whoopi finally raised her voice. All right, enough. We're going to take a short break. No, Jennifer said, her voice firm. Let's finish this. What started as a tense exchange was now a firestorm. No commercial break could contain it. Jennifer Lawrence wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was standing up for every guest ever blindsided on live TV. And Joy Behar, she was determined to finish what she started. The studio lights seemed hotter than ever, casting sharp shadows across Jennifer's face. She didn't blink. She didn't fidget. She leaned in. You know what, Joy? She said, her voice low, her expression unreadable. You've spent this whole segment trying to break me down. But let's be clear, this isn't about me. This is about you. Joy chuckled, a hollow, bitter sound. Oh, here we go. Psychoanalyze me now, Jennifer. Please tell me about myself. I don't have to, Jennifer replied, tilting her head. Everyone's watching. They already see it. Joy crossed her arms tightly. What they see is an actress having a meltdown because someone finally asked her something real. No, Jennifer snapped back. What they see is a talk show host who's so threatened by a younger woman's success that she turned an interview into an ambush. The word ambush hit like a siren. Joy's jaw clenched. Threatened? You think I'm threatened by a girl who got lucky at 22 and tripped her way into an Oscar? Stop calling it luck, Jennifer said, fire building in her tone. Stop dismissing the work, the preparation, the pressure, the years of grinding auditions and rejections. I earned every inch of my career. You tripped your way through that career, Joy shot back. That's what people remember. That's what they talk about. Jennifer took a long breath and stood up, slow and deliberate. The audience held their breath. You know what they remember, Joy? She said, now standing tall, eyes fierce. They remember honesty. They remember vulnerability. They remember me telling the truth when it wasn't perfect. I've made mistakes, but I've never pretended to be better than anyone else. Can you say the same? Joy's nostrils flared. Don't you dare try to flip this on me. Jennifer's voice rose, not in anger but in authority. You dared me first. You spent the last 10 minutes trying to turn this into a character assassination. You called me entitled. You called me fake. But what's more fake than a host who smiles in the intro and then stabs her guest live on air? The crowd was no longer silent. There were whoops, murmurs, even scattered claps. Whoopi was on her feet. This needs to stop, now. But Jennifer wasn't finished. I came here with respect, she said, but respect is a two-way street. And right now you're standing in the middle of it with road spikes. Joy slammed her palm against the table. If you don't like tough questions, don't come on a tough show. Jennifer stared at her. This wasn't tough. This was toxic. The audience reacted like a wave. Rippling whispers, heads turning, eyes wide. Joy opened her mouth to fire back again, but Jennifer had already turned to the other hosts. Her voice softened slightly. Sarah, Whoopi, I respect you both. And I know this isn't what the show is supposed to be, but I won't sit here and pretend this is okay. With that, she reached for her microphone pack and unclipped it. Jennifer, please, Sarah said quietly, standing halfway. Jennifer met her eyes with calm resolve. I appreciate you, but I have to walk away from this, because if I sit through one more second of this hostility in silence, then I'm telling every young woman watching that they should do the same, and I won't. The studio was so quiet you could hear the faint buzz of the overhead lights. Joy looked stunned, momentarily unsure of what to say. Jennifer gave one last glance to the audience, then turned and walked off the set. The camera caught her from behind, shoulders square, steps firm, dignity intact. And Joy? She sat frozen, blinking, while Whoopi leaned forward and muttered, You really couldn't help yourself, could you? Fade out. She left without looking back, but the world wasn't finished watching. What happened in those few volatile minutes on The View rippled beyond the studio walls, and by the time the cameras stopped rolling, a cultural reckoning had already begun. Jennifer Lawrence's heels clicked sharply down the backstage hallway. A stunned producer tried to stop her near the exit. Jennifer, wait, we can... She turned briefly, eyes still blazing. No, you can't. Outside the studio, a small group of photographers waiting for departure shots caught her expression as she emerged. Fierce, unshaken. The flashes lit up her face, but for once, Jennifer didn't smile. She walked directly to the black SUV waiting at the curb, got in, and was gone. But the silence she left behind didn't last long. Inside The View, producers cut to an abrupt commercial break. Joy Behar sat rigid in her chair, clutching her note cards like a lifeline. Whoopi Goldberg leaned over, whispering sharply, You need to fix this. Now. The segment resumed with a forced smile and vague apology from the panel. Joy said Jennifer had chosen to leave early, citing miscommunication and scheduling issues. But no one bought it. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Clips from the confrontation went viral almost instantly. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram flooded with hashtags. #Justice for Jennifer and #Boycott The View, Team Lawrence. The full video segment hit YouTube an hour later and had over 8 million views by evening. People weren't just shocked by the hostility. They were outraged. News anchors, celebrity bloggers, even fellow actors weighed in. Actress Emma Stone tweeted, Jennifer handled that with grace and strength. Shameful behavior from a veteran host. Viola Davis reposted the clip, writing, When women attack other women for success, we all lose. Respect to Jennifer for walking away. A clip of Jennifer's final words. If I sit through one more second of this hostility in silence, then I'm telling every young woman watching that they should do the same. And I won't. Was played on every major talk show that night. CNN ran a full segment called The View or the Attack, while Entertainment Tonight labeled it the most controversial interview of the decade. The following morning, Jennifer released a short statement on her Instagram story. I went on The View to speak about my work, not to be humiliated. I stand by my decision to leave. We should all draw the line somewhere. Mine was today. She didn't tag anyone. She didn't add emojis. Just that. Her fan base surged. Interviews from years ago were resurfaced. Moments where she had defended pay equality, spoken on mental health, or admitted past mistakes. The public saw not a diva, but a woman who had been blindsided and stood her ground with eloquence and clarity. Meanwhile, things at The View were tense. ABC issued a bland corporate statement about valuing open dialogue while striving to ensure a respectful environment for guests. But sources reported internal conflict behind the scenes. Executives allegedly reprimanded Joy, and some rumors suggested she had been asked to issue an apology. She didn't. Instead, on the next day's show, Joy attempted damage control. Well, folks, things got a little heated yesterday. Jennifer Lawrence is a strong personality. I'm a strong personality. These things happen. She chuckled lightly. No one laughed. The audience gave only mild applause. The magic was broken. But the public wasn't interested in Joy's version of events. They were following Jennifer. In a week's time, her film broke box office projections, not just from curious viewers, but supporters, people who felt seen, heard, and vindicated by her actions. A BuzzFeed headline read, Jennifer Lawrence just did what every woman has wanted to do on daytime TV, and we're here for it. A young fan's TikTok with 3 million likes said it best. She stood up, she left. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just stood up. That's power. By the end of the month, Jennifer Lawrence had not only dominated the press tour, but reshaped the narrative. She wasn't just America's sweetheart anymore. She was something fiercer, stronger, untouchable. What do you think? Did Joy Behar go too far, or was Jennifer Lawrence right to walk out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on Hollywood's most unforgettable moments. Until next time, stand your ground.